there was a time that, believe it or not, even I, the Bohemian atheist, had to serve some time at Tent City out here in Arizona. I spent about 2 weeks out in Tent City in like the middle of the transition between summer and fall, and it was a nice time outside, so it wasn't hot. But one thing you notice, I'll get into the story of just my experience through that hell some other time maybe. But one thing I've noticed about prisons, or jails, I guess I should say, I've never been in prison, but they let the inmates really run the place. I mean, there's a few guards on the yard, but mainly, like, as soon as you get into a facility, whatever race you are, a delegate from that race will come up to you with a sheet of paper, and it's a set of rules. And these go from like words you can't say to things you can't do to things you must do. Some races require you to work out a certain amount of time a day. Some races allow
basically create our currency out of nothing, and that we're
fraternizing among the same-sex inmates. Some completely frown on it. Most races require you to fight for your race if something breaks out. But a little side note, funny kind of thing. So when I got approached with, when someone came up to me with the rules, the Woods rules, because they delegate you by your race, and they honestly delegate you by really what you look like. Because I mean, there was like some people who were like not shunned by the black people because they weren't black enough, and then they were shunned by the white people because they weren't white enough. And then, of course, you got the Asians. The Asians don't really even have a population in there. But anyways, so they're like kind of on their own. Anyways, yeah, out here we have what? Woods. The Woods, the Kinfolk, the Chicanos, and the Paisas, I think is how it's pronounced. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Anyway, so I was approached by a white guy. It was like me and like a couple other white guys who just got there. We all kind of got approached by this one guy. And I think it's funny because the first two rules were these. It's just out of just sheer fucking humor, okay? Alright, the funny thing was the first rule was don't call anyone a bitch or a punk, or it's like a green light, which means they don't have to ask for permission to fight you. In other words, if you knew somebody from the outs and you were like, oh, I need to kick this guy's ass because he owed me money or something stupid like that, and you wanted to prove yourself at the yard, you were just telling people that he took money from you or some shit. He'd have to ask his lead dude to say, hey, can I stir up some shit on your yard? Because if he did it without asking, even his race would be mad at him. I mean, yeah, it's that diplomatic. So anyways, the first rule was don't call anyone a bitch or a faggot, or it's a green light, which means you don't even have to ask for permission. You can just kick your ass right then and there. A bitch or a punk. Those are like the big, that's like disrespectful as shit to them. The second rule literally read, no fag shit. Well, it was a problem for me. I mean, but it's kind of funny. It's not funny, but I I just think it's you know, these guys are like really diplomatic, and like I said, there's like these fine rules that if you follow, you know, they can actually like, well, let's judge you really quick. Oh, you did this, and then, you know, should we kick your ass or not, kind of thing, almost like to the T. But then the second rule is something like, look at that queer shit.
Oh, be
Like,
nice.
but they don't run the prisons. If you do something, like let's say something that commonly happens when you're locked up or whatever, is they do this thing called a head count, and they make you kind of like go back to your designated area, your bunk, in this case your tent and your bunk. And if you're not there at your bunk or your tent, then the whole yard goes on lockdown for a certain period of time. Now, the guards make it very clear who the person is who's missing, so that the person's not worried about the guard's punishment when the yard comes off lockdown. They're worried about the prison inmates' reaction to being locked down longer because of them. And I think it's funny because I think this happens a lot in lower class society too. And I'm saying that because I am lower class. Period. I make about $20,000 a year, and that's that's pretty much it. And it's funny because poor people do this too. Poor people have this like hierarchy of respect that's really held to a really high standard, and it's mainly because I think a lot of us feel neglected and downtrodden. But there's like this kind of like, you know, respect level that you have to have, and it's kind of like you know, societal rules. Like I'll give you an example. If somebody acts a certain way in your house or by you, you have to check them to let them recognize that, you know, you're supposed to be respected. Or it's like this whole male macho machismo bullshit. But it's funny that what happens is, and this is something I've noticed is living around impoverished people, is they all compare each other to each other, and they all try to better each other, not really realizing that they're fighting against each other and not banding together like they should be. Much like a prison, you know. And what it really comes down to is, what it really is it's just, you know, it's people who have felt so disrespected that they feel so walked on that they've become very hypersensitive to respect. You know, receiving respect from other people. Even on the littlest things like words, looks, colors of their clothing.